Often it's not clear-cut, but it's the reaction of some players after being tackled that's made the referees act. The Premiership has promised to stamp out the worst displays of unsporting behaviour seen in the World Cup, like holding and pulling other players' shirts, diving after being tackled, and feigning injury to get an opponent sent off. But they also promised to keep down the number of red cards shown. Philip Don represents the English Premiership's referees and says players need to know that unsporting behaviour won't be tolerated.
One of the lessons learned from the World Cup, and given the number of continental players we have in this country, was the number of players who dived or feigned injury to gain an advantage. In other words, they cheated. And we've decided today that that will not be accepted in the Premier League next year.
And the warning to players not to push their luck could trouble some Premiership teams tonight. But the referees hope that by tackling the problem now, fewer footballers and fans will be seeing red next season. Ben McCarthy, News at 10.
The hypnotist Paul Mckenna today denied putting one of his stage show volunteers through a traumatic and humiliating ordeal which left him schizophrenic. The entertainer told the judge his show was a fun show and the man suing him had been keen to take part. Reporting from the High Court, here's our media and arts correspondent Katie Derham.
Paul Mckenna took the stand today in a case that could not just affect his professional reputation, but which could decide the future of stage hypnosis. Paul Mckenna is accused of triggering schizophrenia in a participant in one of his stage shows back in March 1994. Chris Gates claims the stress of the stage antics he was asked to perform, similar to the ones seen here on Paul Mckenna's TV show, brought on his current mental illness. But in his defence, Mr Mckenna today denied Mr Gates had shown any signs of distress during the show and claimed he would never have allowed a participant to have continued in that state. He said he always made sure that subjects of hypnosis left the stage happy and confident. When asked if he considered himself an expert in hypnosis, Mr Mckenna said he was an expert in stage hypnosis, but admitted he had no medical or psychological qualifications. There was a surprise witness this afternoon who contacted the court at the end of last week, wishing to give evidence. Adam James Cordine is a retired stage hypnotist who described the dangers of stage hypnosis, where stress can lead to headaches, nausea, mental disturbances, including, he alleged, schizophrenia. The case will continue tomorrow morning when Paul Mckenna is cross-examined by Anthony Scrivener QC. Katie Derham, News at 10 at the High Court.
The appeal court in London today began considering a posthumous appeal in the case of Derek Bentley, who was hanged 45 years ago for his part in the murder of a policeman. The judges were told that
they called him nigger and stabbed him twice. Within hours, police had the names of 5 suspects from 26 different sources, yet there were no arrests for 2 weeks. The failure of the police investigation in the period following Stephen's murder contributed to the final outcome, the fact that his killers are still free.
These people, as more or less sometimes I say, they're worse than the people who killed my son, because they know the law and they haven't used the law to protect me or my family.
Since March, the inquiry team have been sitting here in this room in southeast London to focus not just on Stephen's killing, but on how the police dealt with the murder investigation and how the Lawrence family were handled. The police have found themselves accused of incompetence, racism, even corruption. The revelations coming out of these hearings could change the nature of policing in this country. Chairman Sir William Macpherson will examine each of the issues raised. His report, due in December, is expected to be highly critical of the Metropolitan Police. The Lawrence family have always maintained the police investigation was flawed because the victim was black. The police acknowledge relations with the black community have been damaged. Anger spilled over into violence when the 5 suspects gave evidence at the inquiry.
I think it's clear that we've lost the confidence of a significant section of the community, the black community in particular. I think there are a number of lessons for us to learn, which we're clearly prepared to do. And indeed, we've taken some steps already to put in train some new practices.
One of the most disturbing claims to come from the inquiry was that of corruption. These photos taken by customs officers show the father of one of the suspects. Clifford Norris, a drugs trafficker, was a known associate of a police officer. It suggested he protected his son through a campaign of threats and bribery. The police deny corruption, but the claims of incompetence have proved staggering. Senior Detective Brian Whedon on the left here failed to make early arrests because he didn't know the law. Despite the tip-offs, he thought he needed hard evidence. The then home of two of the suspects was put under surveillance. When a man drove off with a bag that may have contained evidence, there was nothing the photographer could do because he didn't even have a mobile phone to call for backup. Most damning of all, an internal review into the investigation was conducted by Detective Chief Superintendent Roderick Barker. Misleadingly, he said it had progressed satisfactorily and all lines of inquiry correctly pursued. This report has been condemned as indefensible. For 56 days, the Lawrence family have heard evidence of inept detective work and missed opportunities. In the face of such criticism, the Metropolitan Police have already taken action.
We've changed the way we resource these inquiries, we changed the way we train our people, we changed the processes that we use, we've given much more technological support to this process, and there are new systems for investigating murders currently being put forward.
Today, the Lawrence family marked the end of the first stage of the hearings. Their persistence has forced police failures into the spotlight. For Neville Lawrence, it's a bittersweet victory.
What we've been saying all along, we're right about what we're saying. And these people have just caused the people who have killed my son to get away with murder, as far as I'm concerned.
Shuli Ghosh, News at 10.